The film kicks off with a lively segment of the morning show Wake Up Chicago. After the first segment, co-hosts Derek and Layla clash over their styles. Derek insists on sticking to the script, while Layla prefers a playful approach. Producer Sarah intervenes, urging Layla to keep her creativity within bounds, and Derek to loosen up. As they prepare for a final segment with Chef Kyle, Layla accidentally smears stew on Derek's white shirt seconds before going live. Sarah salvages the situation as Derek ducks behind the counter to change his shirt, reappearing just in time to wrap up the live segment. Off camera, Derek questions whether Layla spilled the stew on purpose for more screen time, but she insists it was an accident and apologizes. Later, Layla's fiancé, Brad, surprises her with a visit and asks about the show. Layla shares that while she left a network gig for regional TV, she loves being a morning host, bringing optimism and joy to people's mornings. Layla feels Derek's rigid approach is holding them back from reaching their full potential, but Brad reassures her to take it easy. Just as they're about to kiss goodbye, their agent Allie and Derek arrive with big news. They've both been shortlisted for an interview to co-host Dayview, a major LA show, as the current host is retiring. After Brad leaves, Allie urges Layla and Derek to make every show flawless in the coming week, as Dayview will be watching closely. Layla and Derek clash again when Layla suggests spicing up their shows to boost their chances for Dayview, while Derek insists on sticking with what already caught the show's attention. It seems this is going to be a bumpy ride. Later, as they leave the studio, eager fans swarm them for autographs, which they happily oblige. While shopping, Layla is approached by an overly enthusiastic fan who offers unsolicited advice about her food items and gushes about the chemistry between her and Derek. Layla quickly shuts it down, explaining there's no chance of anything happening with Derek. She's happily engaged. Derek shares the exciting news about Dayview with his sister, Hannah, and their mother, Annie, during a walk. However, he seems less thrilled about the fact that the job requires a team, meaning he'd have to work with Layla. After Annie leaves for her ceramics class, Hannah playfully teases Derek about moving to LA with Layla. Derek brushes it off, insisting he doesn't have feelings for Layla and reminding her that Layla is engaged. Derek shows Hannah a video of the Southside Children's Choir as they're set to perform on their next show. The clip makes Hannah emotional as she confides that she and her husband, Rick, can't have children. Adoption also feels out of reach due to the lengthy process, and she shares her deep longing to be a mom. Derek comforts her, reassuring her that she'll make an amazing mother someday. The next day, Sarah and Layla meet at a restaurant where Sarah expresses concern about the growing tension between Layla and Derek. Layla brushes it off, claiming there's no issue. Yeah, right. Their conversation is interrupted when Sean and Zoe, their top competition for Dayview, approach the table and tease Layla about her morning show before leaving. Layla feels a pang of insecurity, knowing they're talented hosts. The next morning at the studio, Layla and Derek are shocked to find a baby wrapped in a basket with a letter addressed to them. The letter reveals the baby's name is Poppy May, and she's theirs. After some investigation, Allie learns that Poppy's mother passed away and left custody to an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Roman. However, Mrs. Roman feels she's too old to care for a child and decided to hand over custody to Derek and Layla, believing they could provide a better home. Layla is confused about why Mrs. Roman would choose them, and Allie explains that Mrs. Roman, a huge fan of their show, believes the love between Layla and Derek would create a beautiful home for Poppy. If only she knew they weren't married. Derek, frustrated, tries to push the responsibility onto Layla, but she refuses. Later, Annie suggests they hand Poppy over to the state, since there are no relatives to take her in. However, neither Layla nor Derek feels right about this decision. Derek calls Hannah, and she instantly agrees to take in Poppy. However, since she and Rick are stuck in Canada due to a snowstorm, Poppy stays with Layla and Derek until they return. The two come up with a plan. Annie will care for Poppy while they're at the show, and Layla and Derek will take turns looking after her the rest of the time. After work, Layla and Derek wait at her house for Annie to drop off Poppy. When Annie arrives, she hands over Poppy along with some baby supplies before leaving. However, Poppy starts crying almost immediately, leaving Layla clueless on what to do. Derek, not yet on shift, leaves her to handle it alone. Layla struggles to calm Poppy and attempts to make baby food using a video from Chef Kyle, but it ends in disaster. Later, Derek returns with bags of baby supplies Layla asked him to buy, but she hushes him as she's finally managed to get Poppy to sleep and doesn't want to risk waking her. Derek suggests setting a schedule for Poppy, but Layla disagrees, leaving him to handle things while she makes calls for the show. As Derek's shift begins, he quickly faces his own struggles with Poppy. Throughout the night, Layla and Derek take turns pushing Poppy in her stroller, as it's the only way she'll fall asleep. The next morning, Annie finds Layla and Derek passed out on the couch and wakes them up, reminding them about the promos they need to shoot. Disoriented, Layla mistakes Derek's skincare product for toothpaste, while Derek discovers there's no coffee. The house is total chaos. They arrive at the studio together, surprising Sarah. Layla worries that showing up together might give the wrong impression, but Derek thinks a little extra chemistry will be good for debut. Layla reminds him she's engaged, only to realize she's forgotten to tell Brad about Poppy. Back home, Annie and Layla go through the baby items Derek and Hannah used as children. Annie notices that Layla and Derek are starting to get along better, and Layla reluctantly admits that things are improving with them working together. Just then, Derek walks in with a crib for Poppy, and Annie heads off to her ceramics class, leaving Layla and Derek to assemble the crib together. While assembling the crib, Derek admits Layla is talented and creative, but insists they shouldn't rush changes to their show. Fans rely on their routine, and change needs to be gradual. Layla opens up about her lack of experience with fans, explaining that her old job didn't require any. She asks how Derek handles the fan attention, and he explains that while it can get old, it's special to them, so it matters. Just then, Poppy starts crying, and Layla rushes off to check on her. The next day, Layla and Derek host a show at the Harbor Museum. However, Brad watches from his phone and isn't pleased with the chemistry between them on screen. He calls Layla, asking if there's anything he should know. Layla tries to mention the baby, but gets interrupted by Sarah. Back home, Derek suggests taking Poppy for a stroll, but Layla worries it's a bad idea. News like that will spread through town in no time. However, Derek comes up with a disguise, hats and sunglasses, for both of them. While walking down the road with Poppy, Derek asks if there's any news from Allie about their chances at debut, and Layla tells him Allie loves the frenetic energy they've been bringing to the show. However, despite their disguise, some fans recognize them and take pictures of them with Poppy, all unbeknownst to Derek and Layla. Back at home, Layla thanks Annie for helping with Poppy, but Annie redirects the thanks to Layla, saying she's the one who helped bring Poppy into their lives. Layla corrects her, acknowledging it was Derek's idea and admitting that he's actually a sweet guy. Annie is surprised to learn that Layla and Brad haven't set a wedding date, especially after being engaged for over a year. The next day at the studio, Layla and Derek feel the exhaustion of looking after a baby. Layla suggests they find a way to unwind, which gives Derek an idea. Later at home, they relax on the couch with face masks. In the midst of unwinding, Layla suddenly remembers she never called Brad back, but she dismisses it, thinking it won't be an issue since they always agree on everything. Derek thinks that Layla and Brad's relationship feels stagnant because they always agree on everything, but Layla disagrees, believing it's a sign of love. She explains that her parents were always fighting when she was a kid, so she's always wanted an easy relationship. Curious about Derek's own relationship status, Layla asks him about it. Derek admits that the girls he's dated were just for fun, as they never really knew the real him. He opens up about having a speech impediment as a child, being teased because of it, and working hard to overcome the challenges. Now, he's successful, but it wasn't easy. Just then, Allie arrives with big news. She secured them a table at the Meet the Host with the Most event the next day. Layla eventually agrees to go, as Derek will be busy with Sarah prepping for the audition. Later, Derek tries to teach Layla how to take selfies for the fans, but she keeps flopping. He reassures her that it's all about connecting with the people, and the moment feels sweet. At the event, Layla is hit with anxiety, but quickly reorients herself and handles the fans with ease. Later, Allie calls to tell her that Wake Up Chicago has out-trended Sean and Zoe forever online, which excites Layla. Back at the house, Derek confesses his feelings to Poppy, as if she understands. Spending more time with Layla at work has made Derek realize he's fallen for her, though he knows it's unlikely to work out since she's engaged to Brad. Just then, Brad walks into the house, surprised to see Derek holding a baby with baby things scattered all over. Derek starts to explain, but decides to leave it to Layla. As Layla rushes in, excitedly ranting about her day to Derek, she doesn't notice Brad standing behind her. Finally able to speak, Derek gestures to Brad, and Layla is stunned. Later, Layla explains everything to Brad and apologizes for not telling him sooner. She brings up their lack of a wedding date, and Brad explains that work has kept them both too busy to plan one. Meanwhile, Derek, looking through the online posts, is impressed by the number of views. Layla comes in and mentions that Brad's left for Puerto Rico on another assignment. Derek suggests they celebrate her success with the fans and leaves to get some things for the celebration. Layla, holding Poppy, answers the doorbell, thinking it's Derek who forgot something, but is stunned to find paparazzi on her doorstep. They begin firing questions and taking pictures, so Layla quickly gets Poppy settled inside before stepping back out to set the record straight with the photographers. The next day at the studio, Derek shares that Hannah will be arriving the next day, which makes Layla feel a bit sad, knowing Poppy will be leaving. However, they both have babysitting privileges according to Hannah. Layla tries to explain the paparazzi situation from the previous day to Derek, but is interrupted by Sarah, who tells her she needs to explain to everyone, as the video is already out. They all watch the video together, and Ali reveals that Davey is considering Layla for the position. Derek is shocked by the news, feeling that Layla gave the interview on purpose to sabotage his chances. Layla tries to explain that it was a spur-of-the-moment situation, and that she didn't mean to hurt him, but Derek isn't having it. Disappointed, he leaves, and they both spend the night feeling sad, reflecting on everything that's happened in their separate homes. The next day at the audition, Ali introduces Derek to Nate and Mia from Davey. Derek becomes worried when he learns Layla hasn't arrived yet, as she's never late. Just then, Layla arrives with Poppy in a carrier, explaining that Annie, who was supposed to look after Poppy, is down with the flu. Unfortunately, the flu has spread, and Sarah is also out, unable to help with the production for the audition. Derek suggests he handle the production so Layla can focus on the audition, since it's really her they came to see. During the first segment of the audition, Derek faces chaos in the production room when Poppy's pacifier falls, and she starts crying. This causes him to miss the cue from Layla, but she improvises, making the first segment a success. Derek comes out to apologize, explaining the situation with Poppy, and preps her for the next segment. Meanwhile, Bo Rayburn, who's supposed to share his story of saving children in the next segment, gets anxious and nearly calls it off. Layla manages to calm him down, and Nate and Mia are impressed as the second segment goes off without a hitch. Layla rushes into the production room, and Derek is impressed by how she's handling everything. He jokes that Brad will have to buy her a bigger diamond, but Layla reveals they broke up because, while she thought she wanted an easy relationship, Brad was just too easy. Layla returns to set for the third segment with Chef Kyle. Although she spills cocoa on herself, she improvises and turns the situation around, closing the show with a flourish, much to the amazement of Nate and Mia. Back home, Layla and Derek feel bittersweet as Hannah and Rick arrive to take Poppy home. Just then, Layla gets a call from Ali, who tells her that she got the job and Davey wants to move her to LA. Layla feels uncertain and tells Ali she'll need time to think about it. She shares the news with Derek, apologizing for the decision. Derek reassures her that she deserves the position because of her passion and hard work, but Layla insists she couldn't have done it without his help and doesn't want to pursue Davey without him. However, Derek realizes he doesn't want to pursue Davey, as he can't bear to leave Wake Up Chicago or his family. This makes Layla realize she doesn't want to leave either, and she gets a better idea for their show. Derek admits he'll be the luckiest man to spend every morning with her, and in that moment, their connection deepens, leading to a tender, passionate kiss. 2 years later, Derek and Layla, now happily married, host their show, Rise and Shine America. And guess what? Layla's pregnant.